One of the most interesting ideas to talk about is how simulations and how simulation learning is a very interesting aspect that's underused. What I'm going to have the group up here do is to review a scenario. If you have your devices with you, you can look it up. The scenario is found in the guidebook under the wonderful topic scenario, in which it explains you have two schools, one called Beit Hillel, one called Beit Shammai. And you have two schools that have the same exact value set that are listed out there. And you can look it up so that you can figure out they have the same interesting value set that they have. And of those values that they have, these two schools are outside of the New York area and in a very interesting divide and different place. Now, simulations are good because stories help stick things in your brain. When I give you an idea of certain scenes from the Tanakh, where we have situations where I would say, describing the splitting of the Red Sea, or situations which we have from famous moments of Moshe looking over the land of Israel just before he passes. These are scenes that we have that we're connected to because they're part of stories and they stick in our brain. So what we wanted to do was talk about values from this aspect. While the schools share the same mission, they're going to have different reactions to the situation. The situation that is described in there, just to briefly review for everyone, is that you have a beloved Judaic teacher. And that teacher has worked at the school for 4 years. They've had every wonderful accolade put on them. And one of the students discovers that this teacher has an interesting online presence that was not previously thought of. He has a presence in a very anti-Palestinian, anti-Muslim website, and he's pretty brilliant about it. However, in the 4 years he's been working at the school, no one's ever heard of this. He's never said anything about it in class. He's never made any kind of comments about it to anyone else. And quite frankly, there's a real issue as to how schools are going to deal with that. Because on one level, you have an idea that perhaps he's not living the value of the school. That the school has the value of what they call, of the idea of being a Or LaGoyim. They're going to be a light unto other nations. How could you do that if you have hate? But the other side of it is it says Chai Bahem, that we live with this. That we have the idea we live with what the Torah says, which is another value that they have. And those values, perhaps, he is living it. He is being at school and being a role model and doing and behaving the way that he's behaving and not having the students directly connected to those beliefs. So what I'm going to do is play that out with the two schools. I'm going to switch back and forth. All right? I'm going to have, if you could, just to turn on the mic. Fantastic.
Hello.
If you could introduce yourself and what position you're playing so that everyone knows what's going on. We can start with Ed over there.
Okay, so I am head of school of Beit Hillel. Right? And Rafa usually goes with us, but I guess not in this particular case. Sarah Lee?
I'm Sarah Ellikin. I have a lot of children. They're all snowflakes. And I can tell you now, I'm not happy. I'm never happy.
I'm Rachel Green, Media Center Director at Berman Hebrew Academy here in Rockville, Maryland.
No, we're here.
I'm playing a staff member.
Yes, thank you.
I'm Alana Fine, and I am here tonight as a donor.
Hi. Hello. Hello. I'm Amanda, and I am the head of school of Beit Shammai.
Hi. Let me try this one. Hello? Hello? Hi. I'm Dina, and I'm a parent, and I usually do not complain, but this is going to get me really mad.
Uh-oh. I'm Aviva. I'm a teacher, and partially conflicted, but I'm not happy either.
Yehuda Newberger from Baltimore, and I am playing the funder, And I'm not normally so disagreeable, but we'll see.
So let's do this in a more functional way. We're going to start the scenario by saying that we've already had the initial phone call between Sarah and Ed about this, where she has already aired some disagreement, and this is their first meeting in person in the office. So Sarah, go ahead and start off your meeting in the office.
It's always a pleasure. I pay full tuition, let's just put it that way.
Appreciate your generosity in so many different ways. Your time and the capital campaign.
I volunteer. I make the best canadles in this town. But anyway, okay, let's talk reality here. Would we be happy if he was a white supremacist and he was posting things that were not exactly what we would agree with? How would you feel? Remember, he's representing his school, no matter what, and I don't feel comfortable. I'm going to add one more thing, the sob story. Mom's a Holocaust survivor. Dad is as well. And I don't feel comfortable ever looking at people as they're part of social hierarchies. I see us as a light onto other nations, but I do not think I'm superior to other nations, and I do not feel comfortable with anyone teaching in your school where my beautiful Kinderlach go. Just clarifying that. They're beautiful. Is there more that I need to say?
Right. So, as you can imagine, this has been a huge shock and a surprise. And you are not the only parent to express strong feelings about this.
Oh, I have a whole group of friends who are
And I've encountered them. And by the way, too, on a variety of views around this. Because the complexity here is one, and I'll tell you, and to be transparent with you, a perspective that I personally share and struggle with. But there are a number of values in tension right now for our school, and as the head, ultimately I need to be the arbiter of that and to manage it in consultation with our board and with thinking about the entirety of the community and the needs of this community in our school. So, so the particular views. So I'm going to tell you where we stand right now, and this is a discussion in process. They're also having with the teacher in question as well, because I think, as you know, this teacher and I happen to be aware, even your own children, and having learned with him up until this point, has not only found him to be an engaging a teacher of Limudei Kodesh, right, and a role model, a dugma, in every single way that we would want, and consistent most of all with the mission and values of the school. He is an exemplar in terms of developing curriculum and programming, and in his public work and his engagement with students. He has never brought any of his personal political views in any regard, which is the foundational principle and a standard that we hold in the school. And this was discovered in his own, albeit online, but reflecting his personal views in a setting that was outside of the school. And I know that they are deeply wounding and offensive to so many people. And so that's one issue that we're having to manage, is a teacher who is an exemplar in every way. And I know up until this point, you and so many parents and children would agree. And knowing the tremendous work that he's done with our students, the dedication that he brings, and the impact player that he is in our community, I'm needing to manage that and balance that interest and concern, and for holding on to a truly outstanding Jewish studies educator for our school. Balancing that versus a set of positions that I know are roundly rejected and are deeply offensive to many in the community and troubling. And so ultimately, when we think about our core value of being an Or L'Goyim, and we want our students to be able to stand for that, I think that when we look at an educator, and particularly in one's public or one's private life, We have to look at them in the totality of their work, and to the extent that they are able and to the views they hold in their personal life or express in their personal life outside of a school setting have to be balanced in total with the work that they do inside the school. And as of right now, we're absolutely going to be retaining him as a colleague because in total of not only the quality work that he does, but the extent that he is aligned with our vision and mission.
Hate speech, not okay. Do you have any idea what's going on at Columbia University these days? Are you aware of the hate speech and how it's acceptable? Are you aware of what you are propagating in our own community?
Well, I would only disagree that or we are propagating it, is coming from the particular teacher in question. And for me personally, and for so many of us, it's deeply troubling, and we're in the process of working to manage that. But in balance, that is the position that we're taking, and in interpreting and thinking about all of the values of our school, particularly the one that I just mentioned, that's where we've landed right now.
So over at Beit Shammai,
Sorry.
Dina goes to approach her head of school and talk about the same type of issue. And they've also already had the initial phone call, and this is their initial meeting in person.
Hi, Amanda. I've been a parent in this school for 15 years. You know I don't come in if it's not something important. I have to tell you, I'm really upset about what I just discovered. You're going to tell me that it hasn't affected his teaching, and I'm going to ask you, how do you know that? If somebody is so full of hate that they're posting these things publicly, first of all, my kids can go. My kids go online at this point. How do I know they're not going to be exposed to it? Those things are antithetical to what we're doing in our household and the reason why I chose this school. How can you make me a promise that it's not entering into the classroom? But even aside from that, how can you have somebody on staff who espouses such beliefs that are just so horrible?
So first, I just want to say I really appreciate you coming in. I know, we spoke on the phone, and just being able to be with you in person, it's really upsetting for all of us in the way that you care deeply for your own children, and I care deeply for all the students. I also care deeply for our staff, and we work so hard to, the values for us is not just about, us with our kids, but also with our entire community, and the staff are such an important part of that. And I also want to say that for me, I've known this person for 4 years, and in day schools, you work closely all the time, right? It's 24/7. And it was really surprising and really upsetting. And I think, the worst part was that a child discovered it, right? This is a new world, this Facebook and Twitter and online things, and it really is, and it's something that not just about this particular case, but something that I'm talking to my board about and our leadership to think about how do we make hires, how do we make decisions, what's personal, what's public, how do we, he's doing it in his own personal life, and why should that be my jurisdiction? I don't decide what people do in their homes, but it's not. It is showing up. It is showing up in the school. And at this point, our plan, it's someone who's worked here for 4 years, who's been excellent. But you're right. And at this point, after all of our conversations and all of our work, we've decided to let him go. Because like you said, I can't promise that it's not going to come into the classroom. I really can't. And it is so antithetical to our values and to who we are, that we didn't feel like it was a safe space, and I couldn't guarantee you that it was a safe space for your children. And that is my job. You give your children to me every day, and I promise you, my teachers are going to say things that aren't exactly how I wished they said them, and we're going to work on training and all those things, but the active nature of his presence online is what is alarming to me. It's not just that he's a member, but he's actively posting. He's with our students during the day, and he goes home at night, and he's posting these things that I don't understand how the same person who is so gentle and caring with our students is saying these things at night. And so I hear you, and I'm with you. It doesn't mean it's easy, and I'm not even sure it's the right thing, honestly. Sometimes we make decisions, and there's not a clear-cut answer, and right now I don't know 100% that it's the right thing, but that's where we're sitting right now. And so, my job is to care for your children and their well-being and share our values and grow them into, Jewish leaders. And in order to do that, I feel like I need to let him go at this point.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing your thoughts.
Back over at Beit Hillel, Teacher Rachel has some interesting insights that she'd like to share with her headmaster.
Literally, I'm so mad. I was in the teacher's room. All the teachers are mad. Everyone. There's not one teacher who agrees with your decision to keep him. And he's a role model teacher. Literally, everybody knows the story. So the role model, he's not aligning with our values as a school. If our students were posting something like this, would that be okay? And the other day, I was in the media center. I saw a bunch of kids Googling his name because they know it's out there. So now the conversation is about him and his actions instead of him as a teacher. So you're taking away all that value that the reason why you're keeping him, value is now lost because it's all about his decisions for all the negative things, the things he posts online. Besides the fact that it's just so frustrating. It's so frustrating to know that a school that we are all in alignment in the values, no one else would think of putting something like this that doesn't align with what we're saying, and we're not okay with our students doing it. Just this week, you sent out about the dress code, and there was a whole piece in it about even at home, we're expecting on the weekends students to say, because there's such value here. But here, he can do whatever he wants at home, but because it's not at school, it's okay? It's not okay. It's not okay.
No, so first of all, Rachel, I just have to raise one point about our conversation and the nature of it.
I'm trying to stay calm.
No, I actually, my interest is not in you being calm.
I'm not calm.
And I also, no, and for that matter too, I think
everyone's upset.
Well, no, and it is good and fine to be upset. This is a really tough issue, and I've been upset too.
But yet you're keeping him.
Well, let's talk about our conversation first for a moment.
Okay.
I need to be able to speak with you as a colleague, and not as a constituent. So let's talk as colleagues for a moment, and also with a level of respect and shared trust.
I've always respected you, always trusted
well, no,
you.
at the moment, though, your tone is
this
such.
Decision.
No, and I embrace your anger around it.
Thank you. Thank you for validating that.
No, I embrace your anger around it. The approach, though, of speaking to me as a constituent as opposed to a colleague is a problem, because we have to be able to. I am going to expect a certain engagement and leadership on the part of faculty to be able to think through and problem solve, and this is a complex one. Because up until this point, too, you having worked along with the team with this person, and him being a trusted member of the team.
I've lost respect for him as a team member. Lost it.
I understand. And so, from the perch where I'm sitting, I'm going to look at all the different values of the school and take them into consideration. And this is weight on me. This is one I lose sleep over. And
I'm losing sleep too.
And in talking with, again, I think we need to be able to have a conversation where you express your point of view, and if you'd like to be able to hear my rationale and where I stand at the moment, I'll be in an evolving discussion. I'm happy to do that. If it's going to be contentious, that's actually not a respectful setting for us.
I think that all the teachers feel that you've already made the decision to keep him. And coming to you and voicing their concerns about it is not going to be effective because the decision has been made.
Well, if the only objective is being able to agree on every single circumstance that would enable us to work together, that's not going to be true in a variety of cases. And I realize this is hot, and for good reason. Those are positions that I'm deeply troubled by as well, and I think do conflict with the values of the school.
If a student had done this, would we be having this conversation?
Very likely.
And would it turn out the same way?
When we look at it, we need to look at each situation in totality regarding that person's total behavior and conduct and position and contribution to the school.
You've made it very clear to me that you don't agree with this position. Then what are the consequences for it? There are none.
Well, so first of all, from where you sit, you understand these conversations are inherently confidential. Just as if I was taking issue with you right now, or our conversations, if you were engaged in conduct outside of school, let alone inside of school, I have a variety of responsibilities to be able to engage that and to have discussions, and I have had those with him. But those are going to remain between him and between me and other leadership.
And what if there's other teachers whose voices online don't align with our school? So now politically they can be in the front page of a paper, claiming something, saying something, doing something. It's all okay.
Okay, Rachel, I have done my best to explain from a values perspective where I stand. And right now we're going to disagree, so we're going to need to put a pin in it. And perhaps there's going to be another time where I can speak with you or other members of the faculty, because you're angry. And I understand and embrace that. But right now we're not able to communicate any further about it. So I very much understand where you stand and empathize with it on this particular question.
Well, I appreciate that.
For me, looking in totality about the individual, that's also where I stand regarding his work at the school.
Over at Beit Shammai, we have a different teacher discussion going on with the headmaster.
Hi.
Hi, Amanda.
Thanks for
Can you hear me?
coming.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I really have to share this with you. You know I love the school. I love teaching. I love my students.
And we love having you.
Oh, thank you. I do not see any conflict here whatsoever. If you have a patient who comes in with a heart attack and a broken leg, you treat the heart attack. He's got a heart attack, or he's given us a heart attack. And it bothers me that this comes across as a conflict. I think it's really important for the kids, for you as the head of school, to stand up and say, there is no conflict. We stand as valuing being Or Lagoyim. We do not allow this kind of speech. We do not endorse this kind of speech. And finish, there's nothing to talk about. The heart attack comes first. So I don't like the wishy-washy,
Right.
you know?
So one of the things I'm hearing is that what's really important is that we make sure that the message we're communicating to our students is that people can have different opinions and can disagree. Is that, am I hearing that correctly?
No.
Okay.
No. The message is we know what we stand for. We do not deal with hate speech. Right. This is not the way of the Torah. It's not the way we deal with anything.
Right, so
and our kids need to hear it clearly, or they're going to smell hypocrisy.
So we're letting him go. Do you think that's not clear enough? Or you think
wishy-washy. We feel so bad, and people have different
Oh,
opinions.
you feel like we shouldn't even be saying
he's
that.
Going.
I see.
He's
I
going.
got it.
He's got
Thank
the
you.
heart attack. He's going.
Okay. Sorry, it took me a minute to get there, but I'm with you now.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
So
right.
Okay. So look, you know that the voices of the faculty are important to me, and that's why I came to the faculty meeting yesterday to talk to everybody about this and to hear your voices.
Right,
I appreciate you following
we're
up.
talking like
Right.
there are two
I
sides.
understand.
There are no two sides.
Right. I understand.
One side.
So look, on a personal level, just to share my personal, I agree with you. I think, hate speech is hate speech is hate speech. I think the piece here that is important is that we do have people in our community who feel differently about this. And
this is your chance to teach them the right way.
Can you give me one? I really want to respond to what you said. I really heard you, and I'd ask that you. Okay, so
as long as you say the right thing.
So, got it. I totally got that. So what I would say is, it is my responsibility to hold the space for our entire community. Whether or not I agree or disagree with their political views or their values, we have a value, and our value is to live Torah values. There's Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai in the Torah. There is. And in the Talmud, there's never one rabbi having a conversation with himself, right? Let's be honest. You're a Talmud teacher. You know this, right?
Don't tell my husband that.
The other thing I would say, so for me, expressing my that this is hard is authentic, because it's hard for our community. Whether or not it's hard for you, Okay.
It's very sad.
It's sad.
But
You're
it
right.
shouldn't be hard.
I understand.
This is definite.
Right.
We live
Right.
according to certain
Right.
values.
Right.
This is your chance
Sure.
to communicate that to
So
the
I
children,
hope-
to the kids, to the parents,
Right.
and the community.
Right.
And if there's everyone has a different opinion,
Right.
we're going to lose it.
So I want to pull back a little bit. I don't feel like I communicated that way, but I will reflect on how I did communicate it because it sounds like maybe there wasn't clarity.
I'm happy to say it.
Yeah, no, I think it's best for me to do it. I appreciate that. I think it's best for me to communicate it, but I will make sure that my messaging is clear. I just want to say one other thing. It's not just about holding a space for a community with different values, but it's also modeling for our students that there will be people who disagree, who say things you don't agree with, and we have to teach them how do you respond to this. So my response is this person is no longer welcome to work here, but he is still a human being. And we still can feel bad that he has lost his job, and we can still have rahmanut, and that's also part of our values.
I
and
couldn't
so
agree with you
I
more
want to
on
make
that
sure that we're also communicating that. So I will reflect. I'm hearing from you that my communication may have been too wishy-washy, so I'm going to take that and reflect on that and make sure moving forward that I am clear about our values and how we feel about this, while also making sure that everyone in our community with different opinions feels comfortable and that we're modeling for our students how to engage in respectful dialogue even when we disagree with someone. So thank you for coming to point that out.
My pleasure.
Meanwhile, over at Beit Hillel, we have a discussion between the donor and the head of school.
So, we've done a lot of great things together. I built the gym, the track, and the new science lab. And I was really looking forward to that new wing in honor of my grandparent. And I know, I have a WhatsApp group with Rachel and Sarah, so I know they've already been in here this morning. But I had to come in myself and talk to you because I'm so disappointed in that we're keeping him. When there's a shooting, the first place everybody looks is Facebook, and they look up those posts. And you think, how could people have not seen the signs of what's going to happen? And here we're in that situation. And when I give money, I give it believing in Jewish education. Like Sarah, my family was in the Holocaust. They lived in attics, the Warsaw Ghetto. And it's a moral imperative to not have the kind of values that this person is imposing. And I cannot continue sending my kids to a school. And also that new wing. So if I part, we'll part as friends.
So, if you would like, and I would like to be able to explain to you my position. There's something I've learned, though, today, because you can imagine I spent my entire last couple of days talking to different stakeholders of the school. And one fundamental mistake I did make as a head in speaking publicly about the current standing of this person's position at the school. And I emphasize current standing because, and even in my discussions with him, and I'm able to be transparent with you, given our relationship and the various ways you've invested in the school and the way we work together, in your fundamental lay leadership and community leadership role, is that I and the school are in the middle of managing a complex set of issues, and being able to think ultimately, which I know is a central concern of yours as well, as hot as this is and as strong as you feel about it. You've expressed your love for the school and the concern for the sustainability of the school too. And there is a strong constituency that in balance and in total loves this teacher, and for good reasons, because he has been otherwise a mission exemplar. We agree on that, right? And I think the issue is this particular behavior or this stand, what he's doing, in his public in his personal online settings, so egregious as to outweigh all the other ways in which he has been a mission exemplar and has done the mission-driven work of the school in his classroom and without. And that's what I'm working to manage right now. I will tell you the mistake I made, though, and I really learned this now at the end of a long day, is to have spoken about it at all before consulting with every single and hearing from every stakeholder of the school. And so admittedly, when I've spoken to it, I've left it as an open question in the long term, what this individual's the position is going to be with the school. I made a decision not to fire him immediately, and also in consultation with members of the board. But in having spoken to a parent who's a long-term and a loyal and engaged parent, one of member of our faculty leadership, and now you, I realized the fundamental mistake I made really yesterday in speaking to it at all in any kind of public way is not having talked to all of you first. I'll promise you as well, though, too, that two things. One is the teacher. That teacher is going to need to agree, given where our community stands, to be able to cease and desist in those online settings. And as of right now, we're going to, it's my decision, my best judgment for him to remain at the school, and that may have to be revisited in terms of looking at renewal for next year. And given where all the stakeholders stand and thinking about what's best for the school, I may judge differently when we get to towards the end of the school year and thinking about what's right next year. But I'll tell you what I will learn from overall in the process is when any matter like this comes up, is my way to consult first before making a decision, and even making a short-term decision like this, speaking to it at all was a mistake without speaking to everyone, and all the more so with you, and given your investment and care and love, that you've brought your labor and your love that you invested in the school, and I've realized that after today, that's just true of every stakeholder that I've encountered, and that's something I'll learn from and do better as the head next time.
Okay, I'll rethink the gym.
Meanwhile, over at Beit Shammai, we have a similar conversation.
Hi, Amanda. How are you?
Hi, nice to see you.
Good to see you. I'm sorry that I had to come in here today, but I've got to say I'm really disappointed to hear how the school is handling this issue going on with that teacher. And, look, I know you're in this echo chamber where everyone's saying the same thing and saying just get rid of him, and it's easy to say. And don't get me wrong, I have no sympathy for the views he espouses. But I think the school is doing something we're getting nowadays, and I'm telling you, my phone's ringing off the hook with other donors. I don't know if there's a straw that breaks the camel's back, but this is really going to be a PR disaster for the school. And I'll tell you why. I mean, some of it is just technical, like the school's handbook doesn't say anything about private activity, and that's something that's on us. We have to have policies like that. And, obviously never brought it in the classroom. Slippery slope if you go down that road of judging people's personal activities. But I have something much more fundamental, and it's just like, and I think this is, you and I have talked about this many times, that our society is going to this like absolute place. And I actually think that this is a learning opportunity. This is something, in other words, it's very easy to talk about values and say, okay, these are our values, we're going to toss them out. It's not so simple. And in fact, the lesson that we need to teach our students, values aren't absolute. Like truth is a value, but there's exceptions to truth, we know that. Every value is a judgment call. And we've established, and the school's determined, that this teacher is coming at it from a perspective of protecting Jewish lives. That's also value. Now, I happen to think he makes the wrong call by a large measure, way off. But that doesn't change the fact that he's making a judgment call that's also value. And I think there's two aspects of education that need to happen here. And if we fire this guy for this offense without using this as a learning opportunity, I would be really, really disappointed in the school. I think, there's the idea that people need to understand the idea of competing values and the need to balance. And so while you and all these other people talking to you hear the aspect of, Arla Goyim, he's also having a value. And I think students need to understand the idea that there's a range of perspectives, and it's a learning process, and I think we can correct him. I happen to think the school should speak out against what he says. I think the school should repudiate his views. If you want to talk about making him stop, we can talk about that. But the other part is, our students are going to go through life, and they're going to encounter lots of circumstances where there are people, and then they're going to discover things about them that they really don't like. And you have to understand, you can't reject the person in their entirety. There are, I think this is the same thing. Like we teach our kids about Israel. We teach them all the arguments for, and we never approach the arguments against. And then they get out to college, and the next thing you know, they're hearing all these arguments, and they feel like they were duped in school because no one talked about the competing arguments. We should be having this conversation with our students. We should repudiate the view as a school, and then we should use this as a teaching lesson for the students to understand that sometimes you have someone and you can still respect them, you can disagree with a view. We should be doing something different here. And I'll tell you, like, I think about this the same way, like, you have the...
Take away the gym, too.
Why are you trying to make my life harder over here?
The gym's on the line. Only kidding. But look, this is I think about the same issue with you have significant community leaders and rabbis who are supporting these anti-vaxxers. How do you feel about that? That's a terrible decision in my view, and I think most people feel that way. But you don't lose respect for that person entirely. I think our students need to learn something here about balance. We should be making judgments, but we should also be recognizing you don't just toss someone out the door because his value judgments end up a different place on the spectrum than yours.
So you said a few different things, and I want to make sure that I respond to each of them. But the first that I want to say is that one of the reasons that I really value our relationship is that you are always extremely thoughtful, and when you come to me, you always bring new things for me to think about, new perspectives, and so I really appreciate it. And I also acknowledge and appreciate that you are coming to me to talk about this as opposed to the other people that are just calling you and your cell phone and, or chattering amongst themselves, and it's really important to me that you feel comfortable to come and have this conversation, so thank you. And you're totally right about the policy. It was a miss. Like, it's a huge mistake, and we're working on it immediately, right? It's already yesterday we started working on it. Because moving forward, we have to have social media policies for our staff, and we have to talk about, before our social media policy and our handbook was just about posting pictures of kids or being friends with kids on Facebook, but nothing about their own sort of personal perspectives. And we're talking to lawyers, we're talking to other heads of school on my Reshet, head of school list, and we're, I'm using my community for guidance on this a little bit also because it's a new world. So absolutely on that one. I don't think that we disagree about needing to use this as a learning opportunity. I think that it's something that we are going to do, and I'm talking to my middle school staff specifically about how are we going to do this in a thoughtful way? How are we going to work with our students to understand, yes, people do have different values. Yes, people do feel differently about Israel and about Palestinians and all of these things, and how are we going to navigate and negotiate it? And I'm like paid endorsements here, using the skills from the pedagogy of partnership that we've been talking about. Our students are prepared for this, right? Our students know how to disagree with people respectfully, and they know how to wonder and be curious, and that's who we are, and that's why you send your kids here, and that's why you invest in this school. I think, and I'd love for you to join this team that's working on this. I'm also working with the board to figure out how to involve parents in this conversation and how to use this as an opportunity with parents to dialogue about when there are differing opinions and when people don't agree, especially on this issue because it's so contentious. So I 100%, and it's already in the plans to use this as a learning opportunity. I think the one place where we disagree is the letting him go. I think we can still use this as a learning opportunity, and we can still talk to kids about being respectful and respectful dialogue and disagreeing, but they're middle school kids. They're not high school kids. And they're in an elementary school building, right? I cannot promise parents that this person with these values is going to educate their children without this frame in mind. Based on it, look, again, if he was just a member of this group, that's one thing. But he is posting regularly on this group. He is an active participant, and the language is extremely hateful. And I don't feel safe. We haven't heard anything about it. Maybe he's mentioned things and kids didn't pick them up. I don't know. I don't feel, as the person who is caring for our community, that I can promise 100% that his views won't come out. So while I want to and I intend to, we will be honest with the kids. We will be authentic with them. We will will say this was a hard decision for us, and we need to learn to respect other people's viewpoints, but that doesn't mean that that particular person should be teaching our kids. And I think that's what we've gotten to at this point.
Well, you use that word safe, and that's the same thing going on the college campuses, the safe space. You can't have these conversations. I mean, what about the fact that his parents are Holocaust survivors, and they both spent 5 years in Auschwitz?
All four of my grandparents are Holocaust survivors. Don't go there.
You never know where someone's views come from. And I got to say, I know what you're talking about. Obviously, look, my instant reaction also is bounce him out. But I think we've got to think, and there's this rush to judge and rush to make things absolute. Life isn't absolute, and even middle school students can come to understand that. I really hope you make the right decision here.
Okay. So let me just take a minute to play. Let me just take a minute to play a board member who's a trusted board member. So I'm going to call up Ed and say, Ed, I've heard you had a really tough couple of days. I know the people who've been in your office, and wow, I feel for you. But what going forward do you think is the right thing that you're going to do?
So, you likely spoke to Funder. Okay.
Alana.
Sally, right?
Alana.
I'm sorry?
Alana.
Alana, okay. Alana. So, I'm sure you spoke.
Okay, go ahead, Ed.
You've spoken to Alana, and like the others too, you're right. It's been a challenging few days. And I had to, again, and we can talk with the transparency that I'm not able to, and with most stakeholders, because there are privacy issues and then also legal issues, that I've been getting some guidance on and some counsel about, and this is about as hot as they get. And we do have significant values in tension here. What makes this complex is because, and what's still going through my mind is whether one significant significant not error in judgment, but error in conduct, and misalignment with the values of our school that we've discussed ever since my first interview with you and the board. Right. Whether that is sufficient to terminate an employee. And so where I came down right now, that at the moment, at this point in the school year, that it's unwise and I think wrong to act rashly and do that right now. And what I've shared in every way I can, and particularly with Alana, because I can also speak with transparency there too, that what seems right and wise and a good approach is to be able to, at the very least, enable him to finish this year. And I'm glad to be able to talk with you, but I'm giving a lot of thought, asking some other colleagues, to come to the right decision in balancing his overall conduct, his overall performance, his overall dedication to the mission and to the values of the school.
Correct.
And keep that in balance with this significant issue, in which we're all agreed is not aligned with us. In fact, is directly contrary to it. And I'm really giving this some thought from a philosophical perspective, an educational perspective, our values, but also from a legal perspective, what's the right what's the right step for the school to take. And how about I'm gonna get some more information, think it through it, and then I'm going to give you a call back.
Yeah, appreciate
before I make a final decision about next year. But as of right now, I have to tell you, I think we need to stand by enabling him to finish throughout this year, and then make a decision about the future at the right when I have some more information and had more time to think.
Appreciate your time there, Ed. Amanda, I've heard you had a tough couple of days.
So happy to talk to you.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Let me tell you, I've had a Viva in my face too, and oh my God. So
sorry about that.
Yeah.
Look, anytime we have a hard decision, we always say we have to be mission aligned. We have to focus on our values. And I think the hardest part of this is that our values are on both sides of this issue, right? And I think another really hard part for me is this is a human being, and this is his livelihood, and this is someone that we're close to, and he has a family, and that's a huge piece of it. Look, I think that we're doing the right thing. Personally, it's really hard. I think we're doing the right thing for our community right now. I don't know if I was wearing my Amanda hat rather than my head of school hat, I might say I don't totally agree with my own decision, which is also like really hard for me.
But really honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I'm sitting with, when and then the other thing that I'm really struggling with, which is something that I think we're going to need to do some real work on and figure out who to engage, is I don't know that we should have a policy in our handbook that says teachers can't like be their own selves on Facebook. I think that's like really tricky. And I don't know that I want to be a place where we don't let people, join things and be on things. Other teachers were like at the Women's March and holding up signs that said, whatever. And like, is it my role to say you can't be political or you can't, like, that's a real thing, even with the diversity of our community. And so I'm not there. I would like to use you and the board to really think this through, because I don't know that it's so simple as like tomorrow we have a new policy that says like you can't be on Facebook, So I appreciate this opportunity, and like
Thanks,
I don't think it's over.
Yeah,
I think it's just the beginning, and I think we're also going to really need to get the board, like we're going to need to communicate to the board so that the board can communicate to the rest of the community and all be on the same page about the message here.
Oh, that's great. What I want to do is first of all, please give a round of applause to our fantastic players. Second, what I'd like to do is give everyone 1 minute just to wrap up in their own voice what it is that they feel about the situation.
First, I understood that we'd all be nominated for Tony Awards.
Yes, 100%.
Right? So I did. My name is Eddie. For those most of us we have not met. I'm Eddie Horowitz. I'm the head of the Weber School in Atlanta, and so first of all, the biggest challenge I had with the exercise is something that I think I alluded to towards the end, but in thinking through it, is in making a decision like this without having any sort of conversations with essential stakeholders of the school. I think particularly board leadership and the key leading investor. I simply wouldn't do, and let alone particularly when it involves issues of an employee, of issues of lesser importance in this, when it's about holding on to someone, let alone terminating them. I think that, and I know that Amanda will abide by this practice too. That to be in this situation would be something that I would do everything possible not to do. But on a personal level, this was a tortured set of rationales to be able to put forward on the content of the matter. And yet, I have been in situations, I think many of us in this room, where we've dealt with employees, particularly quality educators, but students, families, and in a Jewish values context, who will make a mistake or error in judgment, and a really bad error in judgment, and balancing that within the context of the totality of their performance and their role. And that is something which always weighs on me heavily whenever there is a question of an employee's position either being terminated or possibly not renewed. In this case, I think I would have fallen into the place that Amanda did. Number one, if I'd been a smart head to be in touch with the key stakeholders of the school first before speaking about it. That's what a wise head would do, I think. And when I am performing as such, then I'm doing that. And in this case, I would want to believe, based on my best practice, that I would have done that. And in all the schools I've worked with, and there have been 4 in my career, I'm hard pressed to think of one in which I and the school wouldn't have come down in the position that Amanda did. So, but I appreciate all the opportunity to be trying out for Broadway. So.
Jewish mother, teacher for thousands of years now, and this is not an unusual situation. I've actually remember a few years back, I had a colleague who did a wonderful job with the resistance movement, and it was any form of resistance. I remember my husband saying, "Oh, really? The PLO could be a form of resistance too?" Which it is, right? So problematic. And I remember going and asking the kids who were presenting on Black Lives Matter. And I found it really fascinating that they knew nothing about the charter, that talked about how much Israel is the white oppressor. And I was stunned that they didn't know this. So sometimes you don't even realize how you're influencing your students in a very negative way without even knowing it. You got to be really careful. Zuckerberg, I believe, is coming out with a whole plan of getting hate speech off of social media. I think that's a great gift. And I know that we're worried about safe spaces, but I think that this is a really negative situation. And I have had my children sometimes come home. They had a teacher, great Gemara teacher, would say very negative things about people of color, and that blew me away. How in the 21st century are we still talking like this? I need us to stop and think about that.
As a staff member, some of the things that you said towards the end of our lovely conversation were effective, even just to hear, to be listened to, and to know that at least be very clear that you and our school don't align with some of those views, and just feeling like we're on the same team here, and that's very important. And I think when it comes up to the real tough issues, to know that your staff members, at least in the school, in the classrooms, there's some of those conversations shouldn't be taking place. And to make sure that whether it's politics or even this, if it's already coming into the classroom or this is becoming the focus point of a lot of the conversations, to hear that that is something that you care deeply about, because for the students, the staff members are the role models. So if they're setting that tone, we can't expect more from them.
I think about once or twice a week how hard it is to be the head of the school. And I really appreciate the nuance and thoughtfulness that you put into the conversation, that it's really not an easy job. A shout out to all the heads of the school out there right now. Woo-hoo! And I really try to approach the school as a place of respecting people with very strong education and values in general, and and never to throw, like as a parent or if giving money, what my role is in terms of pushing you around. But I do have to say that there does come a point where sometimes that a person could get very uncomfortable with the values of the school and whether to keep children, like my 4 children, in a school. And this was nice because it wasn't as black and white, but it does happen sometimes.
So we were assigned these roles in terms of the position of what we would do with the teacher, and I think that probably I would have kept the teacher. So
We gotta talk.
after dessert, are there drinks at dessert? 'Cause that's
Good, yeah. Tina, go ahead.
Okay, I work a lot with teacher training, and in the conversations I have with my students, a lot of it is being aligned in the school that you're going to be at. Are you comfortable with the mission? And it comes up in a lot of different realms. It comes up in terms of tzionut, it comes up in terms of teaching boys and girls, it comes up in terms of many other things. So when it came to this issue, I was thinking how to approach it, and again, the legal issues, nothing was in writing. What did he actually violate by posting online? And I think I'm going to go back before I worked with teachers training to when my husband and I were looking for a school for our oldest. He was 4, we were choosing an elementary school. And when all of our friends were looking at the early childhood, my husband and I went to sit in the 8th grade class because we were interested in the messages that were being given, realizing even then, as very young parents, that how the teachers are persuading the students, and especially what high schools they go to, is going to affect the long-term decisions and ultimately might put our son, at that case, at odds with the values we had in our family. And I think that what was going on in this case fit into that the value, it's not that he had a different opinion, it's how that opinion was being expressed. And it was so contradictory to what I would have wanted my children to grow up hearing, that I would not have felt safe with such a teacher, and no matter how amazing he was, that there's just something at the core that would make me very, very nervous about how it's being transmitted and what are my children then picking up. And it's insidious, it's not overt, it's just that hidden message that when you're talking with elementary kids, they don't necessarily have the nuance to start separating.
You know, I just heard a story about the Klosenberger Rebbe, Zatzal, and there was a Nazi guard standing over him. I think he had already lost a wife and 10 or 11 children. And the guard said, look at you. Look at you. You're like nothing. You have nothing left. I could just shoot you now and nobody would ever know or ever care. And the Klosenbergers, and he says to him, what do you think about that? The Klosenberger said to him, well, think for a minute. If you were in my position and I'm the one who had the gun, what would you expect me to do? You probably think that I would shoot you within a second. And the guard said, of course you would. He said, but I wouldn't, because I'm a Jew and we don't kill. That's a clear statement of values. I was not acting. I really don't see, we're being so understanding and so considerate and so ready to say our most important value, that we are Am HaNivchar, we are chosen to act a certain way and to give across a certain message. That's it. It supersedes everything else. So, for real, except I never talk Gemara.
So I figured someone had to give the counter argument here. In terms of my own views, I think on paper, the way it was presented, I probably would have let the teacher go. I think the Talmud tells us that there are certain professions that are considered warned already, so no second chances, and a teacher is one of them. But I would say that the things that I said, I think are things that should really be thought about and considered, and I ask myself, I don't know the answer yet, but I ask myself if, depending on the specifics of the circumstance, the person, the background, what he said, why he did it, what he's prepared to say about the future, it could be a learning moment. I tend to think not, but I think it's a analysis worth doing, and so I would say pretty much I didn't believe most of what I said in terms of a decision, but something to think about.
So what I'd like to do is have everyone has a facilitator at their table. We'd like to continue this discussion at your table with several questions that your facilitator has for the next 20 minutes. So please make sure to take care of that. And thank you again to our fantastic players.